All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like everyone to know that this meeting is being recorded. So what that means is we'll post this afterwards onto our webinar webpage, and then you can review it, share with others, or if there's anything you miss or have questions about, you can always look at it again. And then the other thing I want to mention is that there's a chat section. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to send me a message in the chat. I'll take a look at it periodically and I'll try to address it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is focused on email management. And I call it the masterclass mostly because we're focusing very, very much on how to use Party Matrix to manage your emails. This is actually, I'm really excited for this particular webinar because so many of us, so many customers that I've talked to face the challenge of managing their emails because we're just getting inundated with emails every single day. I mean, I have hundreds of emails that come in every single day, so it's very, very difficult to be on top of all of that. And one of the things that happens all the time is I start dropping emails left and right. And it's not even on purpose, right? It's just that sometimes, you don't even get to see that email and it's already replaced by dozens of other ones. So in today's webinar, I want to show you how to use Party Matrix in order to more effectively manage some of these emails, how to create rules around email management, but also how to ensure that you're prioritizing the right emails. And whether it's something that's due today or something that's due in 3 months, that you're on top of it. I'm going to give a really quick overview again of Party Matrix for those who aren't familiar with the rest of our solution as opposed to just the email management solution. Party Matrix is a comprehensive email priority and project management software. Where we really shine is ensuring that the most important tasks are not falling through the cracks. So we don't talk about just project management, we're talking about priority management. And what that really means is not everything's created equal, right? There are some tasks that are more important than others. And if you're able to just focus on those, then you've created the most value. So Party Matrix is a communication software at the end of the day, and it helps ensures that everyone within your organization understands what the priorities are at any point in time. So what makes Party Matrix different? First of all, we use the 4-quadrant methodology as a way to promote effective prioritization, and we'll talk about that briefly. And of course, some of the other things about Party Matrix is that we're Microsoft 365 security certified across our web app, Outlook app, as well as our Teams app. Since we're talking about email management, the Outlook component of it is particularly important. And then some of the last thing I want to mention is that Party Matrix is available as a standard SaaS solution, which is what I'll be demoing today. But we also have a HIPAA solution and a GovCloud solution. If any of those things are actually relevant to you, please feel free to reach out to us, support@affluence.com, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So reasons to use Party Matrix to manage emails. 1, we ensure that nothing falls through the crack. 2, we're allow you to delegate emails and have conversations around the email themselves. So you're not just forwarding emails into another thread and then you're replying back and forth and then pulling in more people and then accidentally send a customer an email, etc. And then you're actually also able to attach emails to existing tasks. Because one thing that's really interesting is that some emails, multiple emails, might actually be presented in just one single action item inside Party Matrix. And so it allows you to have Party Matrix as a central place to look at multiple emails at the same time. And then be able to set reminders and due dates, and which is, I think, particularly important because sometimes some emails, the ones that you have to answer today, those are the easy ones, right? Because you can actually just go and type your response and send, and you're good to go. But the problems are the ones that are due tomorrow, or the ones that are due in a week from now or next month, and the ones that are due in three to 6 months. Flagging them just doesn't help because you'll start losing track of them real quickly. So Party Matrix allows you to really tackle those emails that are much more nuisance and further out. And then finally, reducing email clutters to achieve peace of mind. And then I'll also go into how to create rules using your Outlook or even Gmail, and then taking that to maximize your productivity. So then everything that's relevant to you is actually inside Party Matrix. I just want to go back to the fundamentals of Pretty Matrix. There's a quote attributed to President Eisenhower: "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." And nothing actually speaks to this better more than emails, because every single day you're getting so many emails, and the vast majority of them are not important. I guarantee you that. But what happens is that it's the newest email that always gets your attention, right? Because you're just about to type a response, a really important email, and then boom, there's another email that comes in, and you're like, hey, what is that email that I'm looking at? Do I need to respond to it, and so forth? And that nagging is the urgent part of this. And so this quote actually speaks so well to this problem that we all have with emails. So if you're not yet familiar with Pretty Matrix, what we do is we take all of those tasks that you have, all of those action items, and split it into this 2x2 matrix. The core idea is that, if you have one single list of things, you don't know where to start. You start at the top or the bottom or somewhere in the middle. But if you're able to take everything you have to do and split it into a 2x2 matrix, against the dimensions of importance and urgency, then suddenly you have a better picture of where you should focus your time. Namely, the stuff that are important and urgent are the things that you actually should have done already. And then the things that are important but not urgent are the things where you should really be focusing your attention on. And that's the point of Pretty Matrix, which is to go and create a clear path for you, not just to think about your day today, but your day tomorrow, next week, and so forth. Emails is just one source of information in all of this. And so what we're showing you is how to actually take emails and put it into the bigger picture of Pretty Matrix and all the action items around it. So the 4 quadrants Eisenhower matrix creates alignment, not just for yourself, because now you understand your priorities, but across your entire team and organization, because it forces you to prioritize from the very beginning. As you know, when you get your email inbox, it's not prioritized. It's a list, right? And the list gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so some people are very good at managing it by doing folders and flagging and so forth. But what happens is that at the same time, once you start having the list being bigger and bigger, being able to delegate that to others become challenging. And so Pretty Matrix is designed to tackle that. And I want to note again that if you want to watch additional webinars, it'll be at affluence.com/webinars. And if you're not familiar with some of the basics of Pretty Matrix, we have covered that previously. And then secondly, this webinar will be recorded. It'll be available here as well. And then I do want to share our contact, which is support@affluence.com. So I would really love feedback as to whether or not this is useful or what else would be more useful, so then we can address that in future webinars. And with that, I'm going to jump into the webinar management, into the email management side of Pretty Matrix as part of the demo. As I mentioned to those who were here earlier, that there's a chat section. So if you have any questions whatsoever during this demo, please send that to me and I'll take a look at it and I'll try my best to address it. Okay, now I'm going to jump into Pretty Matrix. So again, this is the web app version of Pretty Matrix. And so as you see, we have the do now, plan, delegate, inbox, uncategorize as a standard matrix. So I'm going to walk through this really quickly, making the assumption that you are familiar with Pretty Matrix enough to create tasks and so forth. Again, check out the other webinars if you're not. And then I'm going to go and show you how to create a project, how to manage emails with it. So let's go ahead and create a project. And we'll just go ahead and call this project email project for testing, okay? And I'm going to choose the basic Pretty Matrix project. I'm going to leave the color as is, and I'll create this project right here. So we have a project called email project for testing. Here's what happens. Here, you might track a lot of different tasks every single day. But let's just say you get a customer email. So I'll go ahead and open Outlook. When you're in Outlook, to install the Pretty Matrix add-in, you go to the add-in app store right here. You search for Pretty Matrix, and I believe we are editor's choice, and we should be the #1 application here if you don't have it installed already. And once you install Pretty Matrix becomes available as an add-in for your email inbox. So let me show you what it actually looks like. When you have an email open, you click on this ... here, and you choose Pretty Matrix. When you open Pretty Matrix, it opens this right panel, and this is the Outlook add-in. So here I am showing you Outlook on the web app, but this is available in Outlook for your desktop app, Outlook for mobile, as well as Well, as long as you have Office 365. So when I have this open, you see how in this particular, let me actually jump to an email here. So let me open an email. I have this email here, and I open Party Matrix for Outlook. What Party Matrix allows you to do is capture email. So imagine if this email was particularly important, right? And you wanted to answer it. And let's say you should answer it right now, in fact. But let's just say you're not able to do that. So what are your choices? You can flag the email, right? And that's something that a lot of people do all the time. But with Party Matrix, you're able to convert this email into a task by clicking on this capture email. When I convert it to a task, what it's doing is creating an action item. And the action item, I can choose what project it goes into. The item name is the subject of the email. So go ahead, I'm going to choose that email project for testing, which I just created. And then I can choose which quadrant it belongs in. So let's just say this email is very important. I'm going to assign it to the quadrant 1 right there. I can set due dates on the 15th. And then I'm going to go ahead and create the action item. What I've just done is I've prioritized this email. One thing that is helpful here is that I've set a due date. So if I were to go back to Party Matrix, you see how that email actually is now inside Party Matrix as a task. It's in quadrant 1. It has the email icon, which shows me that, hey, this is a task that's generated from an email, and it has a due date on it. So if I were to go to the calendar view inside Party Matrix, I see that, hey, on this day, I should go ahead and take a look at this email. And you can see that when I go click on this task itself, and I go to the notes section, there's some comments. This notes is actually from the email, right? So it's actually the text version of that. But then at the same time, inside the resource section, you actually have the email file itself. So when you open this email file, you're able to see the email. And what's nice about this is now I can access this email on another platform, on another computer, even when I don't have access to the original email. So that's how I go and I prioritize one single email for myself. Now let's take it a step further, which is I actually want to delegate this email to a teammate. So I go back to Party Matrix. And so I go back to Party Matrix here. And what I'm doing is I'm actually going to open the project details. And so I go to this project details, and now I'm going to invite a teammate to my project. Okay, so now the use case may be that you're going to have a project inside Party Matrix for customer management. So let's just imagine if you have customer queries, maybe quote request or something like that. So you could call this project quote request, and then you can invite all your sales rep and customer management rep right here. Okay, so imagine you have that scenario. Now, when I go back to an email, and let's just say I get an email that's a quote request, and I go to this view again, and I open this, you can see that again, Party Matrix open, but now I'm going to pin it. So when I pin it, it'll always stay open when I open an email. So it's actually really helpful if you pin it. If your screen is big enough, pinning it is actually pretty helpful. I'm going to capture the email again. And so I'm going to call this is a quote request, and we're going to assign to quadrant 2 here, but now I'm going to assign it to another person. So you see how Eugenia now shows up as a user in my project, and I assigned it to Eugenia right there. And I can say that, hey, this is due on the 12th, and able to create this action item. And you see how I've actually just created this quote request as a task inside Party Matrix, and I've assigned it to somebody, and it has a due date to it. So instead of me just forwarding an email to a coworker and say, hey, could you take a look at this? And that person may miss the email, right? That's the biggest challenge. Instead, from Eugenia's standpoint now, it shows up in her calendar. Party Matrix will set a reminder. And so, for example, actually, let's just say I have that due date, but I'm going to say, remind everyone daily until done. One of the things Party Matrix does is we use natural language to interpret some of these things that you have that you type into Party Matrix itself. So when I say remind everyone daily until done, imagine again, this is a customer quote, and I've assigned to somebody, and I'm going to set a daily reminder until we actually respond to this. So then from Eugenia's standpoint, she automatically gets reminders on tackling this particular email because it's a very important one. If I were to, again, to flag an email, There's no way she'd get this notification, and there's no way she'd get this daily reminder, and there's no way she'd understand when she should need to get it done by. The fact that I've been able to convert it into a Protomatrix task assigned to the appropriate person and set the due date and reminders, I've now ensured that this particular task does not fall through the crack. And not only do I know that, because when I go back to this view, if this task has no progress, then clearly I can ping Eugenia and say, hey, can you take a look at this and all that. And the other cool thing too is actually Protomatrix has something called a read receipt. So if Eugenia sees this, it actually will show her icon here, and then she's seen it. And if she hasn't seen it, then you can tell as well, because in this case, you can see that she hasn't seen this task yet. So again, it's extremely helpful because you can't ask someone to do something and expect that to be done if they haven't even seen it themselves. Unlike, again, forwarding an email where you don't have that visibility. So that's how you go and you delegate an email. And let's just say you want to check the status of an email that you've prioritized in the past. You can see that the moment I prioritize an email, the Protomatrix tag shows up here, right? And so I have a lot of different examples here in the past where I have that. And so when I go to an email here, what happens is that, no, I'll go back here. What happens is that instead of capturing email, it says open item instead. So again, if this is a customer quote, instead of actually creating another task, because I've already prioritized it, I can open the item and it opens up here. It shows me all the information. It shows me the status of this quote, and Eugenia can comment on it inside Protomatrix. And now I know that someone's on top of this, and that's very, very important in terms of ensuring that email management, that the emails are prioritized and someone is actively working on it. So there's a question in the chat, which is, how can I send an email from Protomatrix interface? The answer is you don't. When you open the email file, you actually open it in Outlook or whatever email program that you have installed. And from there, you can respond to the email. So Protomatrix itself is not an email management platform. And whatever comment that you type in here, it's actually related it's only captured inside this task. And that's sort of the point, which is, we don't want you to go and create even more emails because we already have enough challenges managing the emails that's coming in. So when everyone who's involved in this particular task, and imagine, here there's 2 people, right? But imagine if you need engineering involved, you need product involved and all that, and they're having a conversation, you don't want to be sending 15 emails back and forth. Instead, you have this chat that's just relevant to this particular quote request, and it's all captured inside Protomatrix. The second reason this is actually really helpful is that in, again, 3 months, when you look at this again and decisions have been made and follow-ups have been made and so forth, you want to review the history and see what was discussed, why we made those decisions. As you know, people leave organizations all the time. So imagine if you have, a manager who leaves, then afterwards, you want to go and be able to understand what decision that person has made. So inside this chat here, you have that captured. And so that is part of the retention, the knowledge retention that Protomatrix offered for this particular email. So that's how you essentially create a task from an email. But now let's take a whole step further. Imagine that you actually want to go and create tasks automatically from emails that a certain customer send you. So let's just say, I want all emails from Microsoft to go into a project inside Protomatrix. One thing that's really powerful about Protomatrix is that every quadrant inside your matrix, every matrix and every quadrant inside the matrix has a unique email address, which means if you were to send an email to that email address, it will show up here in the quadrant. So let me show you how to access that. Again, I go back to my project inside Protomatrix, and then I'm going to go click on this eye icon, which opens the project details. And at the top right here, I'm able to choose Get Secret Email Address. Okay, so you see Get Secret Email Address. When I get the secret email address, I can actually configure it, which means that if an email is sent to this secret email address, it can assign it to a person and also what quadrant it belongs in. Usually by default, I like to do the quadrant 4 because quadrant 4 means it hasn't been prioritized yet. But let's just say I copy this address. So now our system has copied this email address. So let me show you how it works. I go into Party Matrix. Imagine there's two things I want to show you, which is imagine if I write a new email and I paste that email address in, and I'm going to say, this is a test email coming to my address. I'm going to say due tomorrow, remind me daily, okay? I'm going to send an email, and then this is a test. I'm going to go ahead and send that to Party Matrix. So it does take a few minutes for our system to process it, but what happens is I've just shown you that I can write an email into Party Matrix itself, creating a task. But at the same time, I can also forward an email into Party Matrix using the same method. Let me give you a use case. I'm on my phone, and what happens is I get an email, and I want to prioritize inside Party Matrix. On the phone, it's a little bit more difficult because you can't really open this panel out and all that. So all I got to do is I go ahead and forward it to that address, and I'm gonna, you see how it just uses the subject here, and I'm gonna say due tomorrow. I really like doing that because what it does is it sets a due date for me, and so I click send. And this is, in fact, how I manage a lot of my emails all the time. And I showed you an address. Oh, there it is. If I now go back to Party Matrix, you see how this is the email that I sent over in from Outlook into that email address. And you see how it actually assigns it to the person. It sets the due date for me. And then look, here's my other email that just came in. Our system just processed it, and I forwarded an email, and I also set a due date. And you see the content of that email is here. So what that means is that when you have emails that's coming in all the time, and being able to forward it into Party Matrix is important. All you got to do is copy that inbox address. Now the question is, how do you save these inbox address, right? Because as I showed here, every quadrant, every project has an inbox address. So one thing that Party Matrix has too is your inbox itself has an address. So let me go to here, and then I copy the secret inbox. Every person, when you have a Party Matrix account, has this inbox address. When you send an email to that inbox address, it actually creates an item in this inbox, and it doesn't belong in any specific quadrants or any specific projects. So if you don't want your email to go into a specific project, then you get this secret inbox. What I like to do is when I go to here, I go ahead and create a contact. Okay. And so I create a new contact, and then I call this inbox. That's the first name, and then Party Matrix. And then I go ahead and paste that email address. Okay, so now I've created a contact called the inbox in my Party Matrix. So I save that. The moment you do this inside inside your mobile app, then it's actually very, very easy to forward an email. So now when I open an email, okay, and when I forward it, you see how I can click on forward. I just type inbox. Let's see here, contact inbox. I guess the Outlook hasn't saved that contact yet. But if you have that contact saved, you can actually just forward it and type in the word inbox, and then you click send, and then it sends into Party Matrix into this inbox for you. And so that's what happens, is that's the email address that that is unique to you. You can share that email address with other teammates, and they can assign you tasks using this method. But typically, I like to save it for me to manage my own emails. And you saw how whenever I send an email to Party Matrix, I love replacing the first line with the due date. And again, we use natural language to interpret that, because I can say due tomorrow, or I can say due in 2 weeks, or I can say due due in on July 14th or something like that. And then if you do a new line, then you can actually set additional commands inside Party Matrix. So for that, you saw how I set remind me daily. Or I can also say assign to somebody else. So I can actually assign a task to another teammate directly from the email itself, as long as I use that command. And actually in the chat here, we actually just sent information on what are the different commands you can use with Pretty Matrix. And so that allows you to type in the command as needed when you forward these emails. So you saw how I actually have an email address in order to forward these emails into Pretty Matrix. The other thing I want to show you is actually creating rules around this. So imagine if you want to create a rule where every email, as I mentioned earlier, from Microsoft gets forwarded into Pretty Matrix. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my list of projects here. I'm going to open email project for testing. And again, I want to make sure that the project details is here. I go here and I get secret email address, and I'm going to just assign to myself into quadrant 3. I copy the address. So now I have a specific email address. When I go back to Outlook here, I can go and create rules. If I click on this, view our Outlook setting, and I go to rules, I can create forwarding rules. The way forwarding rules works is the following, which is whenever you have a particular email, and go click on add new rule, and we're going to call it emails from Microsoft as an example. A condition would be the, let's see here, the from, let's see. And actually, I think I can go and say, so I'm not able to choose. Okay, so there you go. Recipient sender address includes Microsoft. Okay, and then the action item is to forward to this inbox address. Okay, and then I press save. So what happens now is that whenever there's an email where the sender's address contains the word Microsoft, forward this into Pretty Matrix and create the task. Let me give you some examples where this is actually really, really helpful, which is imagine if at your organization you have some customers that are very, very high priority. Or in fact, actually, maybe you have 5 or 10 different customers. So you go to Pretty Matrix, you create a project for each of those customers, then you get the address, the inbox address for each of those projects, and you go back to Outlook and you create a rule where if you get an email from that customer, which matches a certain domain, forward it into Pretty Matrix into those appropriate projects. Then suddenly you have all these projects that actually will be able to track all the emails from all these customers and ensures that everyone is on the same page, right? Because here's the challenge, which is, let's just say that the customer sends, person A an email, then a customer sends person B an email, and afterwards you're actually losing track of what are all these things that you're doing for the customer. By creating this rule where all the emails from the customer is forwarded into the appropriate matrix and assigned to the appropriate person, right? Maybe that's the customer success manager or something like that. Now you have one central place where everyone can go to, which is inside Pretty Matrix, and see all the action items you have for that particular customer. And then you're able to actually discuss those emails in details, set due dates on them, and then address them as needed. So that's how the rule system works inside Pretty Matrix. And actually, this gives you a lot of creative opportunity to go and modify this as needed within your own organization, because you can make it where the rule will create a task whenever your CEO shoots you an email, or whenever your manager or your skip manager send you an email, right? It's very, very simple and very, very straightforward to be able to do that. Because let's just say you use Pretty Matrix, but your manager's not using Pretty Matrix yet, and they're assigning you tasks left and right inside emails, and you finding that you're dropping those emails all the time. That's where these rules come in. So I really like using those rules. I really like setting them up. I use them myself, and then I also forward my emails into my inbox exactly like I showed you. So that's how the Outlook side works. You saw that, when I have an Outlook email, when I open an email here, you can see that within the task, you can actually, this is called the item detailed. And so you have everything about that task, including notes and resources and so forth. And here you can talk about progress and effort. There's one thing that I want to show you, which is in the notes section. Actually, in fact, let me go back to creating a new task here inside Protomatrix, when you capture email, we have an option called extract action item. So the way it works is we use our AI to analyze the email that you have just received and see if there's some action item that would extract. And I want to make a caveat that this is not perfect. It's not intended to be perfect. But if there are action items that are embedded within this email, we try to extract that for you in order to make it, allow you to actually address those action items. Okay. Now let me show you how this works inside Gmail, because I know not everyone uses Outlook. Well, our Outlook integrations is the most robust. Protomatrix, all these inbox also works within Gmail itself. So if you were to go to the add-in store, the add-on store, I guess, inside Gmail, you click this plus icon, you can search for Protomatrix. Now, when I have done that, you see that I actually have this Protomatrix add-in installed here. And whenever I click on it, it opens Protomatrix on the right-hand side. Same thing applies in Gmail, which is when I open an email, I can open the Protomatrix inbox right here, right? And so I can go and I can, again, let me go back here. I can select an email. And you see how I have the option to send to a PM inbox. Again, the inbox is where it doesn't belong in any specific project, or I can send it to a project. So I can choose this project. So change here to email project for testing. So very similar interface to the Outlook one, and then what quadrant does it belong in, okay? And then I can create the action item. Again, this is now coming from Gmail instead of from Outlook. I'm not sure I got an error here, but essentially allowing me to create a task from Gmail. But the other thing I can do is I can also forward this email into that inbox address that I had earlier. So due in 2 weeks, remind me daily. And so when I forward this email, it does the exact same thing. And one thing that's nice about the inbox address feature is that it doesn't matter what email platform you use, whether it's Gmail or Outlook, or your favorite mail management application, because you don't have to install any add-in. You can just forward it manually or create rules around that. And that's pretty much how you can manage and take any emails and manage and convert them into tasks in order for you to prioritize them. And you see how when I go back to this view, I have the email here, and in this particular case, it was forwarded to me from Gmail. And what's nice is that in the resource section, it actually has a link back to the Gmail email itself. So that allows me to jump back to it as needed. One thing that is always challenging about emails in particular is that the ones that are recent are actually not that bad, not that difficult to manage. It's the ones that are very, very old and the ones that are due far in the future that actually is particularly challenging. So for us at Affluence, we actually have action items around emails where we actually need to take actions in 9 months or 10 months, right, around a specific customer. So for that reason, I always forward those emails into Protomatrix in order to ensure that we address them properly. Now imagine if you get an email, but you need to attach it to an existing task. So I'm going to go back to Outlook here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So you have an email here. You saw the option to capture email, but let's just say you want to go ahead and I'm going to search here. Let's just say you have this email and you want to attach an existing task. I can search here in Protomatrix for that particular task inside Protomatrix. And you see how when I hover over this, there's an option for me to attach or link. When I link, it doesn't attach the actual email file to Protomatrix, but when I choose attach, it does. And that's pretty much it. Now, what I've done is instead of taking any emails and creating a new task from it, I'm attaching an email to an existing task. The use case here is pretty simple, which is imagine, again, you get an external email and then you create a task from it, and then that person follow up again. Now you don't want to go create another task. Instead, you want to take that and attach it to an existing task. And that's what you would do. And if I were to go back here, you can see that when I In the chat record here, it shows that another email has been attached. And if I were to go to the resource section, I have multiple emails from the same customer or different customer and attach into one single place. So this is actually really helpful because now when I assign this action item to Eugenia, for example, when I assigned it to Eugenia, for example, she can go in and she can take a look at this. She has the full context of all the emails that's been sent by this customer. Now I know that when you forward emails to different teammates and so forth, there's always that challenge like, oh, by the way, did you see this other email? Right? That's a quote that is repeated over and over again. Did you see, so and so's email? And that's, this has been changed. This action item is no longer required. They want us to do this instead, right? So with Party Matrix, you don't have to worry about that because you have just one place for you to track all those action items, regardless of where the email comes from. So let's step back for a second. And so let me talk about some recommendations on how you want to use Party Matrix. So first of all, go ahead, go to the Add-in App Store, install Party Matrix for Outlook if you haven't done that already. Second of all, create a project around email management as a place to start. If you don't have that already, definitely do that, just because then it creates one central place for you to track if you're confused as to where you should put those emails. The advanced version of that would be to go and create different projects for different purposes. Again, they could be, if you're in customer management, it could be customers related. If you're in product management, it would be different product lines that you're working on. And then if you're an executive assistant, then you would actually, or an executive, either an executive or executive assistant, then you create a one-on-one project with your executive and then go and forward all the emails as appropriate. And this is actually a really useful way for your executives to understand, hey, these are the emails that I need to respond to, or these emails are actually relevant. And then the executive assistant can be the person that goes and sort of eliminate all the emails that's not important. And instead of flagging them or whatever, the executive assistant can prioritize them. So that's actually really, really helpful. And then the other thing that I recommend is to go and investigate the inbox addresses because once you are more familiar with Party Matrix, being able to create all these rules will really save you time and ensure that those emails don't fall through the crack. And then the third recommendation I have is set due dates. Set due dates, set due dates, set due dates. Because if you set due dates in Party Matrix, it'll show up, for example, in the list view. If an email is overdue, it'll turn red, very, very obvious for you to see. If you go to the calendar view, you'll see, hey, these are the emails I need to respond to. Very, very easy to see. And then if you go to Gantt chart, you can start tying all these things together as needed. But that information, all those extra information is only there if you set due date. And you saw how easy it is to set due date, right? When you forward an email, type the due date. When you use the inbox, when you use the add-in, choose the due date and then choose the reminder as well. So in terms of how you get reminders, it actually shows up here in the alert view. So for example, let's just say when I created that task earlier, which is an email that's due in 2 weeks, but I'm getting daily reminder every single day, it'll show up in here in the alert until I mark that task as done. So it's really, really helpful for me to have that because then I never worry about missing that task. And so when this alert view is building up and that's really long, you can go here and clear it all out. And so, you can go here and clear it all out. And then when you get those notifications again, you're able to address them. And that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in today's webinar. Now I know that there were a couple questions